All right, so if I can get the people who are playing into the party box, I think it's everybody but Jack. We have a cockatrice or a wyvern.
Yeah, it doesn't fly. Don't worry about it. It's just a
Oh,
mount.
Okay. So today we're going to be playing Emerald Mines. Definitely looks like we're playing Emerald Mines AL6. Updating the stream so it's correct. So what I would like for everyone to do is, starting at the top, give me a quick description of your character, what your character kind of looks like, what their mannerisms are, and then mechanically what your character does, and anything that the party needs to know about. So start with Minerva while I put the adventure together.
All right, so Minerva is dressed in basically full heavy red riding armor. It's very ornate, and clearly she is of some noble standing. Her hair is done up for combat, and she's carrying a giant great spear with a red banner hanging off of it, which has basically a wyvern in flight on the banner. She is accompanied by a wyvern, uh, which she is using as her mount. And the wyvern itself looks basically like the token. It's just a big dragony thing with wings and tail stinger and jaws and everything you would expect from a wyvern. Background wise, Minerva was more or less a high ranking officer the forces that in the forces of a country that the guild assisted on one of its missions, and they also participated in tournaments there to demonstrate their prowess. And she decided that since the guild was clearly doing such a good job of training its members, she should join up and see how they're doing so well and see if she can learn anything from it. Uh, Mechanics wise, Minerva is a Bravoro warlord, so I heal you with my minor actions and then charge off after things. I have a bit of enabling stuff going on. If you need a powerful warning, ask me, I have it. Um, if you need healing, ask me, I have a bit of it. And then we have this action point effect. When you try and spend an action point and I'm around, you can
Cut out a bit there.
did you? Yeah, did you cut off? Sounds like you did.
So you get that effect when you action points, and I think that's mostly it for Minerva. So next person.
oh, where did I leave off? Because I was still talking.
Action point.
Oh, the action point thing. Okay, but yeah, this is the action point thing. You have to choose to use it before all that stuff, and then everyone gets a +2 power bonus to initiative as well while I'm in the party. So if you have a battle harness or something, it doesn't stack. But otherwise, keep in mind it'll be reminded you when I roll initiative. Anyway, I'm done. Somebody else can go.
All right, Sparks, you're next. And Sparks is not talking, so Gemma, go ahead.
Okay, so Gemma originally came to being essentially millennia ago, back when lizard folk kind of ruled the land as a dominant species over humanoids, which is why her form is a lot more reptilian than other short minds. Like her face is more elongated, her hands and feet and legs are a little bit more reptilian in style. She got following the apocalypse of their civilization. She woke up far later in the ruins of an underground city, and it was from there that she managed to eventually escape after hiding out in essentially their version of a library, which was still, despite the passage of time, because it was essentially a magical library at the time. A number of the books had been preserved, and she learned how to do some magic from there and how to escape. And from there, she wandered the new surface world, seeing all these humans that she didn't recognize as, you know, anything. So that was interesting. But thankfully, as a sword mind, she had the ability to use telepathy to communicate to people. So she's mostly trying to deal with the sudden culture shift and the passage of time. And yeah,
And
oh, and
mechanically,
she is a wizard mage. She focuses on mostly, basically will attacks. Um, yeah, attacks against will. Mechanically, she doesn't really have that many tricks, mechanically speaking, apart from she can slide people over the place, and she's got a couple of domination tricks. That's about it. Mechanically speaking, she has the soprano language from a feat, and since
okay.
she's immortal, that means she can understand and read anything.
That's not what that means, but yes.
What does it mean then? Sorry.
If you are immortal and you can speak supernal, that means when you speak in supernal, everything hears you in their native language. That doesn't mean you can read or write or understand them. It means people can understand you when you speak.
Okay, I don't know why I write differently then. Okay, in that case, yeah, I listen language then. Okay.
Cool. Spark.
All right. I need to make extra special sure not to be in a chat box when I push to talk. Okay, so Sparks is the son of the remnant of a primordial storm. He was given to a couple in Chisentia after they sold their souls to it for a male heir, but after a while, the Sparks' mother decided that he wanted to get in touch with / have indirect control of him by giving him lots of power and then making it contingent upon being obeyed. Sparks didn't really like this too much, so and he also didn't care for the noble life, so he left to find a way to sever his connection to his biological mother. And so he is with the guild trying to search off a lot of many different planes in order to find a blade capable of severing his ties with his power source. Mechanically, he is a Vestiges warlock, sorry, not warlord. He does damage. He can change the damage properties of his at will with cool dailies. And he kind of is just a stand in the back, shoot at other people kind of guy. You'll see him curse regularly, so I apologize for the language. That's a little bit of a joke that didn't land. That's okay. That is all I think I want to say about Sparks at the moment.
All right.
Unless I forgot something.
Sting.
Sting is a pixie berserker, multi-class fighter, who rides a displacer beast. Sting loves to ride around and poke things with its lance. Sting was minding his own business in his little glade in the Feywild when an Eladrin muttering about pointy bits teleported in. Took a few steps and teleported away again. Being a defender of the meadow, when he did it again, I commanded him to stop and explain himself. He was on fire, so naturally he didn't stop. But later that day, he came back and explained about the guild and what we do, and that's how I found myself in the guild.
Gotcha. And you've got a defender aura and anything else that the players need to know about?
If you're in the Displacer Beast aura, you get +1 to all defenses, I believe.
All right. Nevan.
Nice. Hello. Can you guys hear me well?
I can hear you fine.
Yep.
Okay. Nevin is a human Avenger Invoker. When he was born, um, his village shaman uh, read his fortune, and what the shaman read wasn't a positive one, I suppose. um, he read that Nevin was fated to die a horrible, horrible death, and he would somehow kill everyone he loved. When news spread of this in his village, everyone was afraid of him, and the, and that fear caused his entire family to eventually have to abandon him. Um, but luckily, he was taken in by a nearby temple, but they didn't know anything about his fortune. But as he grew older, though, he always felt that there's always this lingering thing uh, following him, or more so like watching him, and he believes that's what might lead him to his terrible fate. So he decided to find a way to change the course of his future. He began doing researching fortunes, ways to change anything to something, magic warding circles or whatnot. So he eventually he also came into the guild because he needed some way to get better or stronger, and if he's risking his life, he might as well do it for some money. Mechanically, Nevin is a striker and a little bit of controller. He can melee or range, but he doesn't have any MBA or RBAs. Can work really well. But once I'm in my twisting fortune mode, I should be able to maybe hit. Who knows? It's all in the luck.
Gotcha.
Since I MC Paladin, I can cure conditions with a minor. Equivalent, and I can use it up to my wisdom amount. It's a touch though, so I would have to be adjacent to you if I were to be able to cure the condition.
Okay. I'm curious about what that mechanic is, but we'll see what that is when we get to it in game. Varlas, you're up.
Alright, Valis is an elf from a not small, not large city, which is a trading hub for merchants and stuff like that. And growing up, he found out he had an affinity for magic, conjuring small wisps of flame and mana in the air.
User joined your channel.
We gave me a shot. Conjured magic from a young age. But the city wasn't a major hub for mages or wizards or anything magical. Some mages pass through now and again, but no one stayed long enough to teach him anything. So he is mostly self-taught from a young age, and proceeded to teach himself and learn a bit from passing mages whenever they could. Until one day around his 18th birthday, he was mocked and used magic to escape, blinding the mocker and kicking him in the nuts and stealing his money, because screw that guy, he's tried to mock him. And a wizard saw it, who decided to take him under his wing. And Valis was happy for a time, until he found out that the wizard was a complete and utter douchebag. So yeah, well, he was brilliant. He was a great wizard, but he was just mean. He was not abusing him as such, but making him carry everything and making him do everything. And one day he even went so far as to try to bid Valis away, and Valis was just nope, and stole some things and left.
They have a name for teachers like that. They're called PhD thesis advisors.
I was gonna say it's like
Sounds like it.
Mayakovsky.
Basically, I found out after I wrote in the mentor that he was basically Marion Cross from The Grey Man. Oh yeah, of
Cool.
Mayakovsky.
So mechanically,
Yeah, mechanically he's a wizard, a arcanist wizard. But he's, I think, more of a striker than a controller, since he's not. He's got one or two attacks that can push an enemy, and two attacks that can put effects on them, burn and daze, I think, and focuses mostly on doing damage. A bit of fire, mostly fire, a lot of fire actually.
all right. So you guys are some of you quite new to the guild, kind of getting shown around, shown where things are. You notice that there are adjuncts. They're basically quote-unquote guild members, but they're functionaries. They don't go out on adventures. They handle the paperwork and the contracts and making sure that people, get all their stuff taken care of. Wash the blood off of everyone's adventuring stuff when they get back, that sort of thing. Do little rituals
The
around
sort of
the.
free interns.
Exactly. Although Matt does actually pay them, so not exactly interns.
He probably pays them in DM points, so it's fine.
They get paid in multi, which they can't use because they can't go adventuring. um, so as you guys are kind of gathered around talking, you see one of the adjuncts who's having a bit of a hard time, sort of struggling speaking to a man that has come into the guild hall. After a moment, the adjunct sort of uh, waves a hand to get the person to stop, looks around the guild hall for a minute, and then she looks down at some papers that are on the desk, reads through a couple things, and seems to notice Gemma, and says something to the guy who's standing there, and then motions for him to follow her over to your table. The adjunct walks over, and behind her is a man who's human. He's fairly tall. He's a little over 6 feet tall. He's very coal-colored black. He has a lot of crisscrossed scars, especially around his face and hands, like someone who's lived a pretty hard life that's had a lot of hard labor. He's fairly muscular, and he's wearing relatively simple but well-made, what looks like farmer's clothing. He has a wide sash around his belt, sort of a tan color, and then around his neck he has a broad iron collar that is covered in arcane runes. And you see he's got little bits of twine that are looped through the collar that hang down with a couple of bangles. Like he's got a little piece of tiger's eye that is hanging from one of the pieces of twine. He's got a small rodent skull. And when he comes to meet you, he has a very broad smile, and he's sort of holding a little pouch in his hands, following the adjunct, and he's sort of marveling at some of the stuff in the guild hall. So the adjunct approaches Gemma and says, I see from your guild application that you understand the draconic languages, yes?
She'll speak telepathically back. Yes, I have. Yes, it was one of my first tongues, actually.
I believe that this gentleman here has a contract he's looking for the guild to embark upon, although I am having a little bit of a difficulty speaking with him, as it's not a language I'm very familiar with. He does seem to have the coin required to pay for a contract of your measure. She sort of gestures to the whole table of people sitting around. But figure out what he wants, and then once you have an idea of what he wants, preferably even if you decide to not take the contract, I would like to have the details so I can put him in the registry properly. She spins on a heel and then walks back over to her little desk to go and organize her papers. So the man steps forward, He gives a broad, very kind of brilliant smile, and just sort of like looks at everyone expecting, like he's waiting for someone to do something.
Well, Gemma will speak into his mind. Hello.
He gives a little bit of a start and goes, "Oh, uh, hello. My name is Doc Shin. I am from Island. Um, long way from building." He gestures around. He's speaking in the common tongue, and you can tell from the way that he's talking, his accent is extremely thick, and he's having a bit of a problem struggling through the language.
Right. Valis would like to ask him where he's from.
Yay, red box of death. What language are you asking in Varlis? In common?
Yeah, sure. I got it as well. Red box of death.
He smiles and says, Dakshin from island of... He makes a little gesture with his hand like a snake, and makes a hissing sound.
Minerva will, before it continues, she'll sort of like step up and say, if it would be easy, or she'll say, since she heard him talk about Draconic, she'll say, you can speak in Draconic, and we can translate to those who don't speak it easier than you can.
Do you say that in common or say that in Draconic?
In Draconic.
So he, you can see his shoulders sort of relax. He gets a broad smile and says, it's such a wonderful thing to be able to speak in the proper language. I have not seen that many people since I have made landfall that can properly converse with me. It is so difficult to talk to those who do not use the master's tongue. When he switches languages, his voice doesn't change, but he has a very crystal clear way of speaking Draconic where it's pretty clearly his native language.
Gesundheit.
Well, I know this language as the tongue of the servant, not the master, but if it helps you, it doesn't matter. So
he smiles and says, yes, the masters have many names, serpent and beast, and all sorts of behemoth, but that is not what we are here to speak of. I am looking for help to solve a problem that I am having. Our people are in service to the great masters and offer them fitting and wonderful tributes for all of the great deeds that they do in our name. And unfortunately, as of late, our tribute has been less than ample. There is a mine that comes with beautiful emeralds. He pulls the little pouch out of his hands as he's gesturing and opens it up, and you see there's a small pouch full of very small, brilliant colored gemstones. These we harvest from the great mines and give to the great masters. But there have been, and he tightens the string as he pulls it back, many disturbing things of late, preventing us from getting to the mines to be able to properly show our worship for the masters. And I am hoping to find those that would be able to help claim the mines for us once again and clear out the halflings that are causing problems. When he says halflings, he makes a little gesture that some of you might recognize as someone warding off like the sign of evil.
Halflings? Well, I think it should be fully within our capabilities to herd some halflings, as it were. So you have come to the right place, I think.
Spark still doesn't really know what's going on, but he might ask something about the halflings, because I don't typically associate them with evil or nuisances.
So what would you ask?
I would ask if there's anything that he would say is unusual about these particular halflings.
Yes, the halflings, I do not know how to say this in a quite delicate manner, and it is a very affront to the way of our lives and the way of the masters, but the halflings do not simply eat the fruit of the jungle and the fruit of the beast, but will eat others as well.
They're cannibal halflings?
He nods his head. Yes, and they make contract with all manner of strange wild beasts, and they have been seen as doing other disturbing things. The he sort of gestures with his hand to about where his waist is. The halflings that tend to consume other people, some are like this, and some, and then he kind of gestures with his hand like he's making two motions, like there's two people standing on either, one person standing on either side of him. Some are like this. It is difficult to understand exactly how the second form of halfling is created, but they are a disturbing sight to behold. A truly evil and wretched creature.
This does sound worthy of investigation.
Yeah.
So what? Some halflings are normal sized and some are twice as broad or something. I don't think I quite got that.
I'm not really sure that it's meant to be completely understood, but I'm taking it right now to mean that they have like two heads or maybe conjoined somehow.
So
Huh.
he gets a bit of a strange look and says, this is something that we would not normally speak of. This is something that is not acceptable in polite society and would not be exchanged under the worshipful eye of the masters. But some of the halflings, and he gestures to the one side, are born creatures of great avarice and appetite. Other halflings, and then he gestures to either side, are created. Those creatures are equally problematic, but they do not have any inherent bad stuff for them. They cannot help the manner of their creation.
All right. Sounds
Yeah.
interesting.
This
Yeah,
seems like
very
something we're gonna
interesting.
have to see. Yeah.
So, so he pulls back out the little pouch of emeralds and then places it on the table and says, I have been told by the masters of this guild and the people over there with the pieces of leaves that they wish for you to do this and I should pay you coin. I do not have coin, but I have gemstones. I was told that this would be an acceptable payment if you would go and try to cleanse the minds of their corruption to allow us to go and get tribute for the great masters once again.
Well, I'm all about cleansing the minds of wicked creatures.
As long as the money's good, we would do almost anything.
So he smiles broadly and says, well, our ride would be waiting just outside in the river in the middle of your village. Whenever you are ready, he kind of pulls back. He's got a little bit of a travel backpack on him, and he unravels a couple things from the backpack and pulls out two large, almost like garbage bag sized sacks that look like they're lined, like they're oilcloth. They're covered in something that looks like it's waterproofing. It says, I did not have more than two of these, so I will not have enough for everyone's belongings, but this should help make the process much more, or make the journey much more palatable. And he places the two sacks on the table.
I
Starts off.
take one of the sacks and look inside.
It's empty.
Snakes.
Seems to be a mostly waterproof sack. There's nothing inside of it.
Oh,
No
it's an
snakes
empty
jump
sack.
out.
Okay,
We're,
that makes
we're,
sense.
we're supposed to put stuff in there to protect it, is the idea.
I think I can help with this if it doesn't all fit. Being a
Right.
pixie, I think we can rearrange things in the bag to make them fit a little
So,
better.
do you guys have any more questions for Duction? He would. I didn't do it, but he would ask for introductions from people and kind of get to hear a little bit about who you are and where you're from. But after that point, if you guys have any questions if you guys do not have any questions for Duction, he's going to go and prepare your ride to get ready to leave, and you guys can do whatever you need to do in the guild hall to get ready to leave. If you have questions, by all means, ask.
Oh, good.
Considering asking about the masters here, is there like a dragonborn in the room somewhere?
Probably. Seems like a reasonable thing.
Right, so I'm gonna point to one of the dragonborn and go, these masters of yours, are they like, I should ask, because I understand the tongue that you speak is used by a range of mighty creatures? Are they dragons that are your masters, or are they some sort of cousins like him?
He sort of wrinkles his face a little distastefully and says, "No, the great and wise masters are not children of the vicious dragons."
I apologize for any rudeness. Just seek to better understand your culture.
So, basically, I'm not going to do it as much as Doc Shin, but if you give Doc Shin the opportunity to talk about the Masters, he will start giving great kind of a speech on the Masters that doesn't have a lot of details about maybe what they look like or things like that. But he kind of speaks like someone who's a devoted person to the Masters. So he talks about how they heal the sick, they cure the wounded, they take care of everything that is needed. They are benevolent and all powerful and all wise, and very much give this spiel like this is something that they worship.
Right. Well, I'm happy to humor and like listen to him and Johnny.
So if anyone wants to give me either a history or nature check, you can sort of piece together some of the things that he's saying to try to get a better idea of who these masters might be.
Should we all just do one?
If you feel like your character would be one of the ones listening and would be one of the ones who'd be interested in knowing this, you can make a check.
Okay.
Also, if you guys could, if you're not already in character, if you could get into character, would appreciate it. So, actually, I don't know what the 11, 16, 23 is, but uh, Varlas and Gemma, you guys can pretty much put together that they're probably talking about Yuan Ti.
I had a bad feeling about that. Hmm.
For those of you guys that don't know, Yuan Ti are sort of like snake people in the way that centaurs are like horse people. So that for several of the variations of Yuan Ti, the bottom half is a snake. There are ones that have more a humanoid appearance, but they tend to be things that make they're city builders, they're empire builders. They are sort of and typically speaking evil, but they are a intelligent race.
They're
Right.
actually the race that Gemma is more associated with from her Goes to the Past feature.
Gotcha. Yes, not
Sparks
dragons at
thinks
all.
that these are great people. Sparks thinks.
Snake people. Awesome.
So, does anyone have any more questions or any other things you guys want to do before you leave the guild hall?
I'm good.
So, Dakshin will head out to the river that is the small river that goes through the middle of the town, and in the reeds and the tall grasses off to one side of the riverbed, he calls out to something, and you see a creature lift its head out of the water. It has a fairly small head for the size of creature it is, on a very, very long neck, with four kind of padded, almost paddle-like appendages for arms and legs, and a broad sort of leather back that almost looks like a soft-shelled turtle. For those of you guys that have any knowledge of creatures, this is a plesiosaur. So also, yes, similar to Lapras, because Lapras is also a plesiosaur. So the plesiosaur kind of pulls itself up, beaches itself enough that you can see that there are ropes and straps and things that are on the top of the creature's back that looks like you could be able to use it as a mount. And you're able to all make your way up there. Now, mechanically speaking, I'm not going to prevent the Wyvern from coming along with, because I feel like that's a jerk move, but to give you an idea of size, it's not big enough that that Stellaire would be able to come along without causing major problems.
Can we assume that like it
Yeah.
moves, it joins along the shoreline or flies beside it or whatever, even though it can't technically fly, that sort of thing.
And I'm saying, mechanically speaking, it follows with you. Storyline
Okay.
wise, it would not work. So
Right.
you'll have it when we get to the island. So it's about a 2-day trip on the back of the plesiosaur. It's the plesiosaur does stay on the surface most of the time. Well, stays on the surface all the time that you're on the back, and sort of drops you guys off at islands to go and stop and hunt and go get food. Um, it's not a very comfortable trip, and it's definitely not a trip where you're able to keep most anything dry if it's not inside one of the waterproof sacks. Um, but you guys do make it quickly along the river out to the coast, and then go along across the ocean to a set of smaller islands, and then you finally see a larger series of islands come into view. Dakshin will happily talk to people about the island, about his people, about his culture. The long story short is that his people are worshippers of the great and wise masters of the island of Chult. And he will he will kind of explain where certain things are as the island comes into view. Here is a map of Chult. You guys are going to be coming in from the north and west. And you're going to be mostly skirting the coast of Kalimshan, and there's a couple of islands that sort of dot the straits in between the two, in between the mainland and the island of Chult. And then he's going to direct the plesiosaur to go out into the middle of the sea to make the crossing. Near the end of the second day, so like 5 o'clock in the afternoon on the second day, a little bit before dinner time, you come into sight of the ruins of Mesro, which are on the northeastern shore. I think I said northwestern previously, but northeastern shore of the island. And you see what looks to be this massive city that looks like it was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like 100, 200,000 people, mostly made of stone and kind of older style architecture that's been completely demolished. There's a couple of stones still standing on one another, but most of the buildings and remnants of buildings are cracked and destroyed. And then he talks about the ruins as being this sacred site, and then curls around that little peninsula that you see jutting out to right below that. If you go straight down from the word R in ruins, you'll see there's a little kind of darker spot on the coast, and that is where he directs the plesiosaur to go to. All along the coastal area, you see people that come out from small villages and wave to Dakshin. Dakshin gets close enough to be able to kind of shout across the distance and call out to people. He's very clearly fairly well liked. People know who he is, and people recognize him as he goes along. Now, I don't want to go too crazy far into detail on this, but I'm going to go through everyone real quick and see if there's anything you guys would like to do on the journey, or if you have any questions for Dakshin. So, Minerva, anything you would like to do on the journey?
As someone with a mountain who takes care of mounts, I would like to examine the dinosaur and try and treat it well during the mount, pet it or whatever one does to mounts. Bluebird does not take care of mounts, so he doesn't know. But
you can tell pretty quickly that the mount is under some form of compulsion. This isn't just someone who has a beast of burden or a creature that it has some sort of more informal bond with that works with it. Dakshin, when he does command the creature to do stuff, he uses very specific languages, very specific wordings to do things. And it seems like this plesiosaur was bound to him in some manner to forcibly follow what he wants the plesiosaur to do. You can see that there is also a very small iron collar that is also around the plesiosaur's neck. That kind of looks like a bridle or something like that, but it looks too similar to Dakshin's after a little while for you to think that it's a coincidence.
Minerva does not like that, but will not disrupt it for the purposes of adventure coherence. But she would definitely make sure to try and take good care of the mount thing while we're traveling then, because she does not like it being actually mentally controlled instead of taken care of.
Gotcha. Sparks?
Yeah, so I brought some food from the guild. So like every once in a while, I offered, like, hey, you know that the jerky from the guild. Anyone want some jerky? Jerky, and ask around. But like, I keep most of the jerky for myself because I like jerky, I guess. Now, and in between doing that, I ask Doxim. Sorry, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Didn't like your shin bone.
Dokshin, I see. Yeah. I asked Dokshin about the nature of weapons on Chult. So I've heard of Chult. I've heard because I'm from Varen, but it's like this exotic place to me. So I'd like to get a sort of general primer about the history of Chult and what kind of stuff we're likely to find there.
So Dakshin will happily talk about the island. He will say that the great and wise masters are the only ones that tend to venture into the interior, as there are mighty beasts that roam the land. There are some few in the village that will go away from the coastal areas to go and do certain things. They follow specific paths that are more safe than other places. And he'll basically explain things in terms of someone who's clearly sort of living their life in service to these masters. Um, when he talks about the things that are on the island, he talks in a weird sort of a nostalgic way almost of there being times where people just wander off into the woods and get eaten, because that for him is a fact of life, and he remembers certain people and certain interesting things about those that were foolish enough to wander into the jungle and get consumed.
Nice. I asked him if there are any people on the island that are not associated with the masters, but are not their enemies.
He frowns and says, "Not creatures that are not the enemy of the masters, are not the friend of the masters, are not ones that live long on Chult. You must either resist the masters for some strange or nefarious purpose, or you serve the wise masters and you help them do their great deeds. Those that do not have interactions with the masters are not creatures of Chult." So in Dakshin's mind, you're either with the masters or you're against them, and those are the two categories of people that exist.
That's kind of what I was looking for. I sort of changed the subject back to jerky because I guess I like that. I'm going to write that on my character sheet now.
Nice. All right, Gemma.
I'll be honest, Furnace kind of asked kind of the questions I would have.
That's
So,
fine.
one thing I might ask is that if Gemma is, I think during the course you might have put together these masters. Masters aren't quite the same bunch as she's familiar with, but you would ask if it's like, if things go well, would it be any like books or libraries? Is that kind of thing open to the civilians, I suppose?
So it's not that he doesn't understand what you mean. It's that the concept of books and libraries don't really make a lot of sense to Dakshin and take several extra layers of translation to get there. He clearly cannot read or write and doesn't really understand what a book is.
Okay.
Intellectually, he seems like he can understand that there is, you could try to store some things and some sort of information, like you would store food with salt to preserve it over the winter, but he doesn't really have an idea of the written word or research or anything like that.
Okay. I'm done, but I'm just trying to keep an out of character opinion of things from an in character opinion of things at the moment.
Gotcha. And by all means, you guys, if you don't have anything to say, it's not a requirement to have something here. I just want to make sure that no one gets sort of forgotten or glossed over. Sting. And yes, they do tell stories. I mean, Dakshin, again, tells stories about people that were foolish and wandered off into the jungle and other sorts of people that he knows.
Yeah. So Sting, will they stop at islands? Would love to fly over the shallows and then do some spear fishing. So fly up and dart into the water and stab a fish, and then come over to Valras. And you said fire, right? Can you help me out with these fish?
The plesiosaur seems to enjoy watching you spearfish.
That's me.
Nevan.
Um, hello. Okay. I, I don't know if you've answered this already, but did you mention how they served the masters, or how did Dakshin specifically serve the masters with the mines?
So he didn't. He kind of gave a rough explanation, but if you ask him more details, he will smile and explain this tribute process that they go through. He says, every time that there is a full moon, the masters will come and they will take from us the tribute that we offer to them. We will offer up our thanks and praise and the things that they ask for us to collect, and in return we will also offer up our sick and wounded. And the masters will take the tributes and will return the sick and wounded, healed and better. So he explains this whole process where apparently every time there's a full moon, they will send out a canoe that is full of tribute, and he talks about tribute as being gemstones and herbs. Although he very much puts the stronger emphasis on the fact that the gemstones are the important part and that the herbs kind of begrudgingly exist. And then he will explain that they put on the canoes anyone who's gotten sick or injured in the village, and when they send them out on the canoe will then return without any of the tribute and with whoever was sick or injured healed and better.
Nevin asked if the wise masters are able to cure perhaps curses.
Um, he thinks on it for a moment and says, I do not see any reason why the wise masters would not be able to do such a thing. However, we do not have any experience with it in my village. We stick to things as we are supposed to do, and curses are the kind of thinks about it, like thinks about what he was going to say, like he was about to say something that was not in good company, and then sort of composed himself again. Curses are things that simple villagers do not tend to encounter very often, but I believe the wise masters could heal anything. And then he starts to explain how someone got an infection from falling and kind of broke their someone who fell and broke their rib, talking about different sort of maladies of the jungle and illnesses and things, and all of the things that he's seen not only from his own village but from some of the other villages that dot the coast, um, of things that have been healed by the masters, and he has complete faith in them.
Okay. When is the next full moon?
He gets a little uncomfortable and says, "We only have 2.5 more weeks before the wise masters are prepare or should be before we have to prepare our tribute to the wise masters."
Very good. And
Cool.
that should be it for me.
And Varlas.
Yeah, I like to examine his color. Since you said there was arcane markings on it, and there was a color around the lapras thingy. I forgot the name of.
Please, you, sorry. It's fine. Around the mount. So the question that I have to ask is, do you want to just kind of look at it, or do you want to? You know that if you physically manipulate the object, you'll have a much better chance of understanding what it is and what's going on with it. At the other hand, it's very awkward to touch people on their neck.
First, I'd like to try and in secret to see if I can determine the purpose of it.
Sure. Go ahead and give me a Arcana check, please.
So, does that do anything?
So you can tell that there is some minor magical enchantment on the neck, or sorry, on the collar. You can also tell that the collar is sort of sunken in a little bit into the flesh, like maybe it was put on him when he was much younger, or maybe less muscular, and now he's sort of grown around it. The collar doesn't seem to have any sort of seam or latch or break to it. It just seems like one continuous piece of metal, and that is very likely to be a magical effect. You can't really tell exactly what the stuff on the collar is doing, other than it seems to be a form of binding.
Right. I'd like to ask him about the color then. To ask if he if you can explain why he's wearing a collar like the one of the on the. I just need to write that name down. The on the mount.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to ask him about the collar then. Ask why he's wearing it and why it's similar to the one on the mount.
There's the word if you want to write it down, or want to be able to see what it looks like when it's written. So he says, all those that serve the great and wise masters wear their tokens upon their body to better explain to the masters what is wrong. These allow us to be healed and cured of our ailments. They also show that we are noble and wise servants of the masters, true and faithful creatures that are there to serve the great masters and their great deeds. Basically, in his mind, they are one, something that allows him to be healed and protected. So it's a sort of an enchantment to protect him and his people. And then the second thing that he says is that those that wear the collars are also paying homage to the masters. This is sort of a symbol that you are servants of the masters.
All right. And you said if I were examining it closer, touching it and stuff like that, that I could get a better result.
Yes.
All right. Then I'd like to ask if I can examine it, touch it if I may, and see if I can learn something from it, if it's protecting.
So Dakshin looks very uncomfortable when you ask him to touch the collar, and he will basically say, the masters do not wish that we tamper with these things. They are far beyond our knowledge and beyond yours. And he kind of covers it up a little bit protectively. If you guys want to make a diplomacy check or some other way to try to convince Dakshin to allow someone to examine the collar, you may do so. But he's definitely not going to allow it without some pretty heavy convincing.
All right, I'll try blood check then, and just and say it's just for the purpose of knowledge. I'm sure your masters would love to have more people worshipping them, and yeah, stuff like that.
Okay, so you make it sound like you might want one of your own.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, go ahead and give me a bluff check.
Well, that didn't work out well.
You are extremely unconvincing in this manner, and he sort of very politely sort of keeps up this sort of customer service smile, but his demeanor is at least partially faked now, and as he tries to make sure to have you roughly in his line of sight when he's up and moving around. You guys make it to the island of Chult. Once you make it to the village that Dakshin is clearly from, there's about 24 people that come out to the edge of the village. And can I get a passive perception and passive insight from the party, please? If you could just post that into chat for me. People come out and start sort of milling around. People look a little bit like they don't really look at you guys very much. They seem to be very friendly towards Dakshin. They also are speaking in Draconic. Gemma, you can notice that there is very much a distance that the other villagers place between themselves and you all. And they very much make a point of interacting through Dakshin rather than interacting with any of you individually. They set out a kind of a large feast table on the edge of the village. The village is located at the bottom of a large hill that kind of goes up and into the jungle itself. And people are gathered around the table getting stuff ready as Dakshin says that he will get a feast for everyone to head off into the jungle. It would be inappropriate for people to head off on an empty stomach. And kind of gets things from the jungle to have a feast for that night to head off the next day. Going to a little bit fast forward, if anyone has something that they want to ask or any questions they want to do or anything they want to investigate in the village, by all means do so. But in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of go forward to the next morning. So, like I said, interrupt me or type something in chat if you want an answer about something. The villagers very much keep a distance. Nevan, you can notice that the villagers are all roughly between the ages of about 17 and about 40. Most of them are human. There's a single dwarf and a single elf that is in the village as well. But they're all of adult years, like in their prime years. All of the people wear collars, yes. None of the people have any ornamentation on their collar like Dakshin does. He has the little things that hang down, like the tiger's eye and the little rodent skull. All of them have a plain metal band instead.
Wait, there's no children around?
There are no children, there's no old people.
Dun dun dun. Okay.
That's kind of creepy. Where does
Isn't
the
quite
children
harsh,
come
really.
from?
There's men and women though, right?
Yes, there are men and women.
I'd like to ask Dakshin about like the healing that he mentioned before. Every full moon.
So he will say, yes, we have all been healed at one time or another. He will say that he's been healed 3 times.
If it's not too personal a question, what maladies have the masters cured for you?
So he will explain that there was one time that there was some sort of disease that swept the whole village, and that he was one of the ones that was very sick with the disease. About half of the village itself came down with this one particular ailment, and as he describes it, it sounds like it's effectively malaria, and the masters cured the entire village. He then talks about when he was new to the village, that he fell from some of the cliffs that are to the north of the village while he was exploring one day, and broke his leg. And people from a nearby village carried him back to his own village so that he could be put on the tribute canoe. And he talks about having to wait for almost a week, and how it was silly of him to go and explore and do things that were dangerous so far away from a tribute time. And he also talks about um, one of the time that he was having problems, and he has a hard time explaining it to you, but basically he talks about his teeth were messed up and that his teeth were very, very painful, and that the wise masters changed his teeth, and then he kind of gives a very broad smile, and you can see that he's got sort of immaculately clean and bright shining teeth. He explains that he was having all kinds of problems with his teeth and that the masters healed him.
Since you've gone through this process yourself, what does it involve? Were you conscious for the master's healing, or
So
what happened?
he will describe it, and again, when he talks about the masters, he doesn't give a lot of very hard and fast descriptions. He gives a lot of sort of metaphorical or sort of flowery descriptions of things. He talks about the masters taking him off of the canoe, and placing him down in a circle where everything around him was lights and smells and sounds, and he could feel this great weight of power that was pressed down upon him, and all of the sickness and illness and injury was driven away from his body by this voice and this powerful essence. And what he does, he basically describes what you would need for what is likely a remove affliction, or some sort of healing ritual that would restore people's broken bones and that stuff like that.
Well, that sounds very exciting.
Um, Here's a minor question. I know that we and Flawless did well enough here. We know that it's UNT, do we?
You know that the masters are UNT, and you know what UNT are.
Which is pretty bad news most of the time.
Mhm.
Right. I'm gonna hang out with Flawless then. Also, because he's a better wizard than I am, so.
My history check failed so badly that I'm not actually convinced that I do know what UNT are.
So I assume that you guys have some sort of watch for the night and don't just, everyone curls up into a dark hole and goes to sleep and prays everything will work out fine.
No, man, we all party and get really drunk and just stone dead unconscious.
You say this like it's a joke, but one of the groups totally did this on a similar adventure.
That's
Yeah.
not right.
Barnes
If you
is not
hadn't,
gonna do that. He's gonna stay away from alcohol and gambling because of
Yeah.
bad experiences.
if it wasn't for the fact that it was UNT, maybe, but it changes things.
Well, Barles got a ritual for alarm, so he can set up a warded area to alarm us if anything goes by or comes in.
So, again, the villagers kind of avoid you guys. Dakshin will happily talk to you and kind of is pretty clearly like either the village elder or maybe the village leader. and will happily kind of discuss things with people and make sure everyone's comfortable and well fed and all that sort of stuff and able to wake up in the morning. In the morning, most of the village continues to avoid you guys. Dakshin, in his very sort of amenable, happy manner, will come and talk to you and be very smiling and talk about these things, and will show you kind of a rough outline of the map of the island itself. If you guys still have that up, I'll go ahead and reshare it just so you guys can see it again. He describes that basically where the emerald mines are over near where on the map the F in the words peaks of flame, in the of, that's where the mines are located. And he describes that there's a couple different routes that are relatively clear to get from here to there, but it is a bit of a ways through the jungle, and that typically what they do is they have people that go to the mines. They kind of all go together. They work in the mines, and then when it's about time for the tribute to happen, they then come back from the mines to give their load of tribute. So they tend to stay at the mines for long periods of time. And there was a disturbance in the jungle that caused them to flee the mines, and then now that they've gone to return to the mines, they found that there are things there that are preventing them from harvesting the emeralds. So he can roughly describe where the pathway is, but he very much uses a lot of terms that it's going to be a little bit difficult to find your way through the jungle to get to the mines themselves. So does anyone have any final questions for Dakshin? Anything that they want to do in the village before we head off for the day?
Ask about the kids and elderly.
There's a couple of questions I want to ask before we go, yeah.
Sure. So, asking about the kids and the elderly, Dakshin will say, the wise masters, they are here to help us when we are in the waning years of our life and in the beginning fullest parts of our life. They take care of all of the children, all of those that are young that would not survive out here on their own in the great jungles. In their wise nature, with their infinite patience, they take care of us until we are ready to properly serve them. And those that grow too old or too weak, they are the ones that take care of the new young and are able to relax and enjoy themselves if they have lived a life in proper service of the masters.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask him. Oh,
No,
ahead.
you go ahead.
I want to ask him about his time when he was young and worked with the masters.
So he'll talk about basically being very young. Apparently he around the age of maybe like 12 or 13 is when he got sent to one of the villages. And he talks about when he's very young, living in the city of the masters, where there's tons and tons of people. The young and the very old are there, as well as many of the master and the master's servants. Talks about the huge buildings and all of the lights and the power, and you can tell that he's very much looking back at it with sort of nostalgia of how things were in this great time, but he's also looking at it from the perspective of someone he's really looking forward to his time in the villages being done once he's old and kind of retiring to the city of the masters.
I'll ask a minor question. I understand that it is right and proper to give tribute to these masters for, especially considering the benefits and boons that they grant you in return. How has their reaction been to the inability to collect tribute so far?
So he shrugs and says, "We have not had one of our tribute canoes interrupted as of yet. This is a very recent problem. Our village," and he sort of kind of puffs up with a little bit of pride, "our village has always been a prosperous one that serves the wise and great masters for many, many years and in many ways." He sort of strokes the little bangle of tiger's eye that he has on his collar and says, "I have earned many favors from the great masters, and kind words have come my way for the production and the wonderful things that we have done."
Good for you.
So he sort of doesn't answer the question of what happens if there's not a lot of tribute, but he does say very kind of purposefully that he is proud that the wise masters have always had good tribute from his village.
So no one's gonna call him out on his evading the answer, well, evading the question.
Guess not.
My passive insight's so low, I'm not sure that I would notice.
So, anything else before you guys head out? Doesn't sound like it. So, going off into the jungle, you have the very vague kind of map from Dakshin, you know roughly where you guys need to go. The first method is, or the first sort of challenge is to get through the jungle and get to where you guys are going as safely and quickly as possible. As you guys are moving through the jungle, there's a lot of different things going on. The first thing that you have to do is decide who is leading the expedition. Now, the way that this works is rather than everyone rolling a check and everyone sort of figuring out who the best check is, you instead have to pick someone who's going to be leading, that's going to be the one that's in charge and going first. Navigating through the jungle either takes a dungeoneering or nature check. Now, that is the primary person. You can either use nature or dungeoneering to navigate through the jungle, and then everyone else can choose to assist if they would like to help the person get through the jungle and help find their way. You can use many different things to assist. You can sort of justify your actions. You can use perception to sort of see certain things. You can use nature to sort of identify tracks so that you guys can avoid some areas with monsters. You know, you can use all kinds of different skills to assist, but whoever is running it as primary needs to be either dungeoneering or nature. And what we'll do is we will have the initial person set it up, and then if other people want to assist, they can then roll to assist. Assist is going to be a DC 13 in order to successfully assist. If you successfully assist, the primary person who's leading the challenge will get a +2 to their roll. If you fail to assist, then you will get a -1 penalty to the roll. And once we have that overall from the whole party, we'll have an idea of what the total thing is going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and add everyone to initiative real quick. You guys need to discuss amongst yourselves who is leading the challenge.
So I guess we should take the one who's got the highest engineering or nature.
Sparks is unskilled in these areas.
Same for Minerva.
Gemma has +10 to both.
Alright, so
Looks like we got
no-
a front runner.
Sting, are you there?
Yep,
Okay, I didn't know if you had a. I don't know if you trained or not.
I got +10, but I yield to Gemma.
Okay.
Same here.
So, Gemma, that means that you were the one leading the roll. So I'm going to go ahead and put you last. So, Minerva, are you helping the traversing through the wilderness, or are you kind of trusting to the party to make it to where you're going?
I'm not really skilled in things that aren't, well, I will sort of, me and my wyvern will move at the front and we'll try and clear the way and cut the way through the jungle, and that sort of thing, if that's okay.
Yeah, so make the path easier to travel for everyone else.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So, an athletics check, I assume?
Yep, sounds good to me. Alright, so that is successfully assisting in the group and clearing off areas so that you can see remnants of where the trail once was. Sparks.
All right, so I've heard of Schult. It stands to reason I might have looked at a book about one once, so I'd like to draw upon my knowledge of the history of this place in order to see if I can recall any paths to where we are going that is in addition to the ones that Dakshin has provided for us.
Okay. So it's a history check, it sounds like. So, able to successfully assist. You know that there were some kind of older maps of the Chult itself there was a great causeway that cut through the jungles, and then as you guys move along, you can see little glimpses of the causeway that's sort of down in the valley, whereas Dakshin's path and the trail that he's described to people is skirting along the edge of the hills and the mountains, avoiding sort of the flatlands and the areas in the middle as areas where people go to get eaten. Barlis, you're up.
All right. I'd like to. I like to try and help with finding, with marking the path by using dungeoneering.
Okay.
Wait. Yeah. To try and also make it easier and prevent people tripping or walking into something dangerous.
So you guys are traveling along some pretty rocky ground. You're, showing people where sure footing is and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Give me an engineering. Excellent. Nevan, you're next.
Okay. I guess I'll use perception to see if there's any creatures that are hostile toward us, hiding out in the bushes as Minerva is cutting down the pathway.
Okay. Sounds good to me. So, as you guys are traveling, especially when you get away from the rockier areas into the places where there's pretty deep, dense foliage, you can see that around the base of some of the larger bushes, so almost look like small trees, the bottom of it is very kind of broad and spread out, kind of like if you guys know what a holly bush looks like. So they're just big, broad bushes. You can see that there's a lot of tangled things on the bottom, and that many of those bushes seem to be hives of some sort of insect or maybe a spider group of spiders that live there. And as you're kind of going along the edge of them, you can see there is about an 8-inch long, bright orange and yellow spider that skitters along the edge next to it. And you see as it goes into the hive, there's a little flurry of motion as the bush shakes a little bit in response to the spider joining its kin. Those bushes look like they would be very, very problematic, as those spiders are probably either venomous or poisonous or both. And you
I don't
can
like
safely
this
lead
habit.
people around that. Speaking of things that are venomous, poisonous, or both, Sting, you're up.
I'd like to use my knowledge of nature to kind of look out for uh, like tracks or places where a very large ambush could happen.
Okay. So as you're going along, especially when you have to pass sort of the small areas between the rocky paths, you basically are hugging along hills and then going down into the valleys for as little time as possible before you make it up along another ridge. Especially in the valleys, you can see places where there are very large footprints, footprints that are the size of your displacer beast. Many of them look like they are also either kind of broad and circular with kind of fatter toes, or they're hooked like a large bird of prey.
Would these be dinosaurs by any chance?
They would indeed.
I pass that information along.
Um, there is enough tracks from a large predatory dinosaur that you can tell. Actually, with the nature of 29, there is a allosaur that is nearby.
That's not good.
So, Gemma, you are making your roll. Everyone successfully assisted, so you're making your roll with a +10.
Nice. I'm just gonna roll a 1 now. Okay. I'm actually gonna use. Yep. Just to give myself basically advantage.
Okay.
because I don't want to roll a 1 after everyone else passed. So nature or dungeoneering, my choice.
Correct.
Okay.
There you go.
Nice.
So I don't really need to roll again, and that's a 40.
Excellent.
All right.
So I'm going to move everyone over to the map.
So we go to. So I've lived here before.
So basically, what happens is that as you're going along, everyone is pointing out, oh, well, there's the tracks of these large beasts. Okay, let's don't go there. Oh, there is this nest of spiders. Okay, let's not go there. Oh, there is this piece, a sign of an ancient causeway. Okay, well, let's go along the areas where we can sort of see the causeway is close enough that we can use it as a guide, but we're not going to be down in the valley where things can cause us problems. Sorry, fix that for you, Minerva.
Thank you.
So as you're kind of going along through it, you can very much kind of get the idea from everyone that's here and sort of collect all of the information that you need to quickly and efficiently make your way through the jungle. As you are continuing forward, you can see that there's one of the few spots that you don't have an easy way of getting around. There is a nest of those spiders that is here. Ideally, I'm on the correct layer, so you guys will be able to see that. I am. So there's a nest of spiders that is here. And seems to be at least partially blocking the path forward. This area here is one of the few kind of cuts in the jungle that you can make your way through. These areas here are all blocking terrain as there's very heavy brush, and there's a relatively narrow path going forward. You guys have the freedom to be able to move around a little bit. What I am going to ask for everyone to do is to roll initiative. Now this is out of combat initiative, so don't worry about temporary bonuses like Minerva's +2 or anything like that. This is just to make sure that you guys have an opportunity to each make your way across the terrain. There's a lot of things around that look like they might be problems heading forward. You can very clearly see the spiders, and you know roughly how they react to things is pretty poorly. You can also see that, especially in this area over here, there are a lot of tracks. You can see a couple of different tracks left by that Allosaur are in this little area here, where it looks like it's walked through the jungle in this area.
For reference, I'm on 8 slow because my thing is already added into my modifier
Gotcha.
by default.
So, Minerva, you're up first.
Alright, so our goal is to get past this spider thing and continue on through the woods, correct?
I ideally should have the thing on the map. Hang on, one second.
Yeah.
So you should now see the in and out arrows. The goal is to get from the in spot, which you guys are able to move around quite a bit since you guys succeeded so well, and your goal is to get to the other side of the map and get out.
Okay. How catching how fire how able to be caught on fire does this forest look if we were to attempt to burn the spider webs and the spider nest?
You mean flammable?
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for that I
So
didn't find for some reason.
the nest, especially from the good nature check previously, you know that the nest would probably be pretty flammable. But it is a very low chance of actually catching to everything else around. The jungle, it rains every day. It's sort of misted raining throughout the day today. Everything here kind of has that sort of humid, soggy heat. So it's unlikely to continue burning for quite a while. But if you can get some of the moisture out of the bush, uh, it will definitely light fire.
Okay. I would probably like to then direct everybody to sort of back up from the thing and get into a safe position and have our fire mage torch the spider web. I don't know if that means I should diplomacy or pass or what, but
You don't. This is not a skill challenge, so you don't have to do anything in particular. It's just
okay.
making sure everyone has a chance to act. So, Varlas, do you want to set fire to the nest?
Well, is the Pope religious? Of course I do.
So yeah. Varlas, describe how you were setting fire to this nest.
And Squishies might want to move back.
Right. Yes, I'm gonna. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna use my burning hands skill, and just make a huge area of flame around and in the bush. Just suddenly conjure up a fiery pit of doom and hell and heat.
So
No.
give me a roll for it. You don't have to roll to hit because it's a bush. It's not going to move out of the way. But I need to know how much damage you do.
We're gonna have to repeat that.
You broke up really badly there.
You guys are starting to cut out for me.
Yeah, it's in here. Testing. Check.
It still sounds like it's pretty broken up.
Yeah, you guys sound real bad.
Testing again, still broken.
Still,
So testing is still scratching.
User in your channel timed out. User disconnected from your channel.